So let me introduce the panel. On the far side over there, we have Matt Morissette, who's our SERCA Chief Technology Officer. Next to him, Lina, you've already met, WCS and Field Practitioner and Deployment Partner. Next to her, Jonathan, Chief Technology Officer for WCS. I've probably got your title wrong, Jonathan. And next to Jonathan is Jess, the Director of EarthRanger. So just to kick us off, we have a few questions. I'll start with the panel, but please let us know if you want to join in, if you have opinions and you have other questions you'd like to ask the room or ask us. Matt, let me start with you. Where do you think that technology is still adding friction to the conservation space?
So as technologists, we obviously live for the most part in well-developed areas like cities and that sort of thing. And I think we often underestimate the difficulties that occur in the field. And like Cleo mentioned earlier, it's usually under high pressure situations. And so, as a software developer, you don't really think about the heat of the machines that you're doing. So if you're doing complex computations on a laptop or a mobile phone, and that overheats in the, in the desert or wherever you are, that has meaningful impact on the field users. And if they can't, if you push a button and it doesn't save, that's time lost, frustration, and a lot of work could be lost there. So keeping the environments in mind while you're developing your platforms, or even maintainability, underestimating what a baboon can do to a camera and all of those fun things. So, yeah.
Thanks, Matt. Lina, what do you think enables sustained adoption of these technologies, not a one-hit wonder and one and done?
Yeah, the basics is, I think it's an easy tool to use for sure, and if it's possible, to be free. And also that you were talking about that a little bit, is also that the trust that you have in the tool, you're not going to lose your data, the data is not going to go somewhere where it's open to everyone and you have control of certain things, especially when we are working with governments. And also, I will say, support behind the tool as well. And SMART and EarthRangers are both good examples of that, both partnerships and SERCA now. They've been working for many years, supporting us as users, and I will say it's a bottom-up tool instead of otherwise top-bottom tool. So we always keep communication with people behind the tool, here, some of them are here, for Smart Mobile, Justin, and always this doesn't work well, we need this, we need to adapt this, and that communication between the user and the developer for us has been amazing, and it's key for the adoption as well.
Can I add a little bit? I mean, I think, and Lina, you're just such a good example of this, that when it comes to deploying systems, if you set out to deploy a system and train people in it, over time it will decay and it will fade away, and it touches on what Lina's been saying about support. But basically the best examples we've seen of adoptions of these tools is where there's sustained support to keep things ticking over, to keep lifting things up. And I know, Lina, you've done the work you've been doing in Colombia. It wasn't, you went out and you trained and that was it. Sustained support, sustained checking in. Do you want to talk a little bit about that as well?
Sure, yeah, because training, you can go to a workshop and, yesterday we have just a wonderful workshop about Smart Survey, but I'm pretty sure the participants there had a lot of more questions, and it's not just about the training, it's of course a sport in general, with all the material, access to people that human people as well, not only ChatGPT or whatever, human people that can answer you questions when you have those questions. And also sometimes, you're worried about you lose the data or something happened with the system, how can I solve it really fast, and people supporting behind that. It's really important. And having people in different languages as well, for sure, like in Spanish and also in different time zones also, like we've been having all this support behind, and that's work for us as well.
Yeah, I'd love to add to that also. For us, I think it's the difference between being a software vendor and really being a conservation partner. Neither EarthRanger nor SMART historically, and certainly not SERCA, have approached this and will approach this as this is something that we are providing to the community. We ultimately care about the work that all of you are doing, and so the elements of trust that Lina was talking about are really just so critical, but it's also something that we very much personally feel. When one of you reach out to us with a challenge, or with whether that's a challenge with software that we make or a challenge that you're facing in your own work, to us that's not a customer request. That's something that we as a partner really want to address and help you find a solution for. And that to me is really one of the most, if I could say so, most beautiful things about working on these products that we've had, all of us have had the opportunity to work on, is to be part of that conservation mission and not just building technology.
Yeah, thanks. We are very much part of the community, the 9 partners that make up the SERCA Alliance. All of them, as part of the deal, implement these tools at sites and work through WCS. For instance, uses SMART and EarthRanger throughout the world in so many different ways. So this is not an abstract thing for us. It's not building something for other people. We're building it for ourselves to make all of our work better, and making it available to anybody else who wants to use it too. Jonathan, question for you. What do you think is more important, trust or technology?
Yeah, I think that's an easy one, trust. Trust matters so much. I think, we knew when we scaled SMART and when we scaled EarthRanger, it wasn't just about providing a solution. It wasn't just about building capacity. It was about thousands of people and hundreds of organizations trusting a technology to run their enterprise, to run their operations. And that was a massive vote in trust, and something we all worked on by ensuring we built a tool based on the needs of our constituents. I think as we went after announcing SERCA and beginning to kind of reach out to some of the programs that are currently using SMART, and for SMART users, in some ways it's going to be a bigger change because we're going to change the desktop solution. The importance of trust has really kind of been highlighted for me, and I think a couple of weeks ago, Jazz and I and others were at a meeting in Central America, and one of my colleagues said to me there, look, what you've done with the tools and technology is amazing, and we trust you 100%. We trust you 100%. But with SERCA, I want you to re-earn that trust. I want you to show me that it's going to be better, that it's going to be flexible. I want you to show me that you're going to take all my users and my organization through the change of upgrading to a new platform and support them. So for me, trust is critical. And I think on the SERCA side, we're so thankful and so humble that we've been trusted by so many partners. And we're committed to not only maintaining, but doing everything we need to do to re-earn and rebuild that trust, or take that trust to a new level with a new platform as well.
Thanks. Just to add, it's not just about bringing all the partners with us. It's about promising that everybody's data is safe. That data is earned through blood, sweat, and tears, and we know that. Been there, sweated it, bled for collecting data. So as we move forward, that's one of the promises, is that everybody's data is safe. The user experience may look and feel a bit different, better, but the data is safe. And that is part of that trust that is so important to all of us. Jez, this is a good one, I think. Where do you think technology might introduce unintended consequences?
I think one of the things so some of the things that I guess worry me along the lines of that question, one is around data handling practices and organizational security. And so making sure that organizations have the right processes in place to properly protect their data otherwise the unintended consequences can be pretty catastrophic. And I say this often, but I strongly encourage everyone that you have thorough processes in place and training for everyone on your staff to make sure that people are handling data and information like passwords properly. The other one that I worry a little bit about with unintended consequences is around misinterpretation of data. I think it is, well, I'll share a story that I had a security manager of Reserve come to me very excitedly talking about how they had identified a ranger who was colluding with poachers based on movement data in EarthRanger. And I'm very happy to say that thankfully they found additional evidence, but to draw that conclusion from the data that he showed me is not a conclusion that I would have drawn. And so I am really concerned that people draw appropriate conclusions and you know, don't hallucinate additional meaning from data. And now with AI, I think there's even perhaps more of a chance of that with AI interpreting data and perhaps not getting things right. And then since we are building systems that help people make decisions for conservation effort, if there's an AI that hallucinates or improperly interprets something, and there are decisions made on top of that, that could really lead to negative unintended consequences. So all that to say, you know, for each one of these things, it's certainly something on our mind and something that we are working to mitigate. So with the Ecoscope analysis platform, we'll be introducing ways of interpreting data to ensure that not just an analysis as an outcome, but that also the input data are appropriate for running that analysis, for example. On the AI side, we're working on I have trouble with this word, agentic interface to SERCA that will allow you to query your data, but we are very carefully putting guardrails in place so that it is not going to interpret the data and draw conclusions that aren't necessarily there. So we're doing everything we can to mitigate these, but generally, I think, you know, I think it still requires diligence. You know, people need to use these as tools, but there's still the obligation for people to use them appropriately.
Thanks. One of the things in my that I forgot to say in my car crash of a presentation is that we're on a knife edge in that we really need to make the tools simple to use, but we've got to be careful that we still encourage critical thinking and that we still encourage people to think through the processes and not just click through something that's so automated that they're not analyzing and reflecting on what they're doing. And I think that's going to be one of our challenges going forward, that we don't distract people with all the bells and whistles. We make it simple enough, but still encourage that thought process as we go through. Jonathan?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's really good to hear, Cleo, because that's, you know, not just with SMART and EarthRanger and SERCA, but with all the conservation technology WCS uses. You know, I'm genuinely worried about that kind of concern. I'm genuinely worried that technology mesmerizes and trances and just gets people into the process of going through the motions. And I think, you know, most of us have lived through the time when email was genuinely a great productivity tool, and now, you know, is email a productivity tool, or is it a suck on all of our lives, you know? And that risk is present with all technology. And so, yeah, Cleo, if we can make sure that SERCA not only enables people from the first day, but continues to prompt and engage people and challenge people and empower them to think more critically about our work, we're going to succeed.
I think that is one of the benefits of the SERCA partnership, is that those 2,000 sites, those 9 organizations, 100 different countries, it's bringing that experience of everybody into the design space. It's that being part of the community and not aside from it, bringing something in. Has anybody else got any questions they'd like to ask or comments they want to add to this discussion?
If you will define one factor to build trust, one word, what will be? I would like to hear everyone's opinion.
Consistency.
Hey, you stole my word. Now you got to go to the other side.
I'll go reliability.
Simplicity.
One word? Achieving, it's not only one word, achieving your targets, conservation targets. So all we want is achieve what we are doing. That's even whatever the route is, but you need to get there.
Nobody asked my opinion, but I will say quality as well. So yeah, we need to build a product based on the highest quality standards to make sure that we're working with safety of personnel, we're working with safety of wildlife. So as Gias mentioned as well, AI requires responsibility. So yeah, I think it's super important as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you.
That's a good question. I'll add to the mix presence.
Yeah.
You know, always being there, and you know, it comes back to reliability and consistency, but being present as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I just had one question. I'm sorry.
Hey there, good afternoon. My name's Mandy. Really appreciate this conversation. And I focus heavily on wildlife trafficking. So it's just a couple of things I wanted to add on. I'm also a product director, so I flip-flop on both sides. And what you were saying about distraction by the products is something that I've seen myself in the field working with anti-poaching units, not even using those tools, just being distracted by their mobile devices in general. And I have grave concerns about that because situational awareness it can be a life or death situation in seconds out there. So I'm just curious how you guys may be considering that and thinking about it. One, from the human influence side and how it reflects back on them and their own actions. And then two, on wildlife and ecosystems, because sound, light, vibration, all of our technology impacts all of this. And so I guess maybe I'm thinking futuristically and would love to see some trends and analyses on this to understand how you're tracking these potential changes. So kind of a loaded question, but.
No, it's a great question. And actually, we'd love to work together on trying to measure and quantify the same things. But qualitatively, I can say that the considerations for those things are really part of the user experience design of the tools that we create. One of the great experiences that we had as a team, we spend a lot of time out in the field with some of our partners to really understand the situation that people are in and the reality on the ground, making sure that the products that we create are appropriate for their situation and aren't introducing unintended consequences. But to this specific example, we went out with a partner and we were on a walking patrol, and we came across a pride of lions, and he handed the phone to one of our designers and said, okay, now log a recording. So the lions were right there. And they said, now look down at your phone and log the sighting of the lions. And he said, yeah, we get you. So I think really understanding how these tools are used and making sure that the experience matches that and isn't introducing like the bells and whistles or data collection or any additional activities at the wrong time. And certainly in a domain awareness setting, that's quite critical.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd add to this two things. One is I don't really know the answer, and I'm desperate to learn from others about the strategies and approaches they're taking, because I think it's a collective issue, and I think a lot of things you mentioned, Jez, are really important, but I think we need to learn and teach each other and help each other find a pathway forward. I think the other part of the answer is it is a management and support question. I think if you deploy a system and let it run, people will end up like hamsters in a wheel just running the system. Potentially, there's that risk. But I think if you do, like you've done, Lina, in Colombia, be there, be a partner who's there to discuss how is the system working? Is it working for you? What are the challenges? How is it amplifying your work? How is it empowering you? How is it distracting you? Then at least you can begin to kind of manage away some of those issues.
I also want to add to the second part of the question about the interference of the technology on wildlife and natural places. That's also something that really concerns me, and I think it's a community-wide conversation that needs to be had. One partner that we have worked with in the past once suggested kind of a community-wide agreement on how technology will be applied and how it won't be in order, taking into account the interference on the wildlife. The most obvious example of this to me is putting a collar on a tracked animal. Unless there's a really, really good reason to put the collar on an animal, please don't. You know, all of us are here because we're trying to protect the wild nature of these animals and these places. Similarly, you know, we got an email 2 weeks ago from someone asking if we had any experience with using wildlife tracking to improve visitor experience for tourists. And as politely as I could, I said that that's something that we are pretty steadfastly against. Like that the point of this technology isn't to be able to make it easier to find a leopard when you're on a game drive. That to me, in my opinion, is an abuse of the technology. So I do think it's a conversation that we have to have in general, like with these human-wildlife conflict mitigation devices that I think you're referring to with the lights and sounds and stuff. I think that they're necessary because the alternative is really problematic, but we should take a look at what are the guardrails around using those things so that it's not interfering in a way that's any worse than it has to.
I also want to say that this is one of the really great things about this alliance, is having the experience and now some of the resources. Previously, as the director of SMART, our very small core budget needed to go into keeping the software going. And so we had lots of ideas about how we wanted to interact from our user communities about, you know, some of the rights and wrongs of things, but we didn't have the resources to necessarily put to that. And now coming together as an alliance with WPS and with EarthRanger putting significant technological resources into it, it frees up some of the rest of us to really investigate and think about those angles. And this really is an alliance that's open to anybody. So as Jez said, we would really encourage anybody who wants to get involved with this to come work with us. We don't have the answers. You know, we're trying to listen to what people need and build tools that support that and not override any of that. One of the questions from the app is what are the tools that are going to be part of the SERCA suite?
Look at me. Okay. So how this will all go down, and we really need a slide to illustrate this, is that we're working towards a common set of tools which are made up of a SERCA web app, a SERCA mobile app, a SERCA desktop app, and then there's a supporting ecosystem of other products that feed into that. So more technically, the plan is that we are taking EarthRanger, we are adding to that some of the functionality that everyone loves and has become accustomed to from Smart Desktop, and that will form the basis of SERCA Web. So that, more specifically, are things around patrol management, around querying data, and around viewing data in a tabular way as opposed to just in a map, so that'll be a lot more familiar to the SMART users and useful in the same way. So that is for the web path. At that point, once we've added those missing functionality, SERCA Web will be our recommendation as a partnership for anyone that's looking to use protected area management or domain awareness or these sorts of tools, provided that you have a reliable internet connection. We'll also be taking EarthRanger Mobile and adding to it missing features that are present in Smart Mobile, and EarthRanger Mobile will then become SERCA Mobile and form that basis. In parallel, WPS will be leading the development on a new SERCA desktop application, which will incorporate all of the critical functionality of Smart Desktop and eventually will become the common recommendation for an offline solution for the SERCA suite.
I just want to add to that. We are aware that change is painful and that it takes a lot of resources, training and things looking different. So we're going to do our best to support people through that. And we anticipate that there'll be different times at which people may want to move from what is currently Smart to SERCA Web or eventually to SERCA Desktop. We will be providing advice. We will be telling you where we're at with the development and when it might be a good time for you to consider moving and how you might want to go about doing that. It is not just as simple as just, if you've got connectivity. So we're aware that each context is different and it can be complicated, and we are here. So please ask us if you want to know more, if you want some advice, if you want to say, but that doesn't work for me. We're here to help.
And so that's kind of a base starting point for the conversation. But obviously, everyone's situation is a little bit different, and we have a commitment that no one certainly won't be required to. But generally, we're not going to recommend that anyone make any sort of product changes unless and until there is a reason that they're really looking forward to SERCA Web or SERCA Desktop or whatever that is, and that they believe and feel that they're going to get a better experience, better support, better tools from that than they've had in the past. So there's this base understanding that we have to be making things better.
And I think it's also important to emphasize that we are going to maintain Smart Desktop during this process. And for years, we don't know exactly how many years that will be, but we are not going to flip a switch and arbitrarily push you off the application at all. So that is very important that we're not, forcing that move arbitrarily.
Yeah, and I think if we're thinking about the sort of suite of tools, I think it's worth talking a little bit about this kind of broader vision about how SERCA fits into a bigger ecosystem. And that, Jez, you and I and Eric from WPS have talked in a number of places about this bigger vision, about the suite of making sure that that SERCA is an incredibly powerful tool, but it fits into a broader ecosystem and people can build out, can integrate, et cetera. Do you want to talk a little bit about the plans there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we mentioned the main three applications that we're working on. In addition to that, there are things like Gundi, for those that are familiar or attended the EarthRanger session earlier, that we will continue to build and support and to encourage, not just for sending data into SERCA applications, but also elsewhere. There's the Ecoscope analysis platform that we will absolutely continue to invest heavily in and build, and that will consume data and provide analysis for data from the different SERCA applications as well as other data sources. We also, over the next Chris, keep me honest, couple months, I'll try to be generous, we'll be rolling out the SERCA Identity Platform, which is a single sign-on system to allow you to have one login initially for the SERCA applications and Ecoscope and Gundi, but anyone in conservation, if you want to leverage this, we would love to work with you so that you can also provide authentication for your users based on a singular SERCA identity. And we strongly encourage, request, hope that all of you that are building different types of conservation technology will take a look at this ecosystem and look at what are the components of it that you can integrate with that would really help your development processes and certainly your users. And either if it's something that exists already, fantastic. If it's not, or if there's modifications that you need, please talk to us. Ultimately, all of our goal collectively is to drive conservation forward. It's not to release a singular product. So, we would love to work with any and all of you on how we can continue to help you, whether you are a technology producer or obviously a practitioner of conservation.
We have some questions in the app, if you don't mind me asking and interrupting. All right, so the first question, and it's to add on to that, but is how do we ensure SERCA delivers the benefits of consolidation without becoming? And so I'll ask that and then encourage you all to ask questions via the app.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's through partnership, it's through working together, it's through being clear about your requirements, it's through making sure that as you look at either becoming a new adopter of SERCA, upgrading from EarthRanger to SERCA Web, or upgrading from SMART, you're critical of the tool. You be honest with us. You tell us, look, this is great, and I love A, B, and C. I love all these great new features, but I need this, and I'm not moving my 600 users unless you move this. So I think it's open dialogue. You know, we're committed to doing this, but it's a big endeavor, and we'll make mistakes, we'll trip, we'll learn along the way, and so I think join us in partnership and help hold us to account, but help us, I think, go back to help us regain or retain that trust we already have, and so you are certain, yeah? So, and I guess the bottom line is, you know, we want you to upgrade to SERCA in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years or whatever, but we only want you to do it when you're certain it's the right thing for you to do.
And to me, one of the really exciting benefits of the partnership and realizing that I always get this quote not quite right, but that the sum of the parts is greater than the individuals, or whatever that is, you know, the 1 + 1 = 3 sort of thing. So the SMART partnership and EarthRanger have kind of come at conservation technology from different angles. The EarthRanger team are technologists that I think we can say after 10 years have become conservationists. The SMART partnership, originally made up of conservationists that have become technologists, and through that we definitely have our specialties. So I think I'll brag a little bit by saying I think that we're very good at building tech, and I think that the entire rest of the partnership is also, in addition to that, incredibly good at field conservation and best practice. And so the bringing together the technology with going beyond that and talking about capacity building and talking about how can people be effective with these tools, not just how do they install them, is one of the things that I'm most excited about in the partnership. So historically, EarthRanger training has been click here to do this. What I really look forward to is the SERCA training of when should you click here and what does that do for you as an organization?
It starts before that. What is it that you are trying to achieve? And then from that, what tools can help you? What data do you need? And how will that work? And that's really how we want to frame everything that we do with our users and our partners in SERCA.
Leona, I will add also, like, I recall what you were saying before, our voice is very important as users in this. Like this afternoon, I think, I met the Ranger team and I showed them what we are doing SMART, like from multi-species occupancy models. That is something our concern to be able to do it in SERCA as well. And we talk, and it seems like it's going to be very feasible. Yesterday we talked with Jess about CERNAP system here in Peru and Colombia. They only have one data model for the whole system. And so we should share also those data models so they understand how we configure everything, so that when we move to SERCA, you know, it's more easy as well. So if we can share also like examples, or you need, like in my case, I need a specific thing to do in SMART and be able to do it as well in SERCA. Just, you know, approach the people here and talk to them and hear and tell them their needs and your needs and you know, the process you do on the daily basis, so that basically SERCA don't skip anything.
I was just going to say, like, as part of that, a single word that might apply is listening. I think that's like one of the things that we're here for as well.
What are the plans to support the transition for users from SMART-EarthRanger to SERCA?
Well, one of the things that we want to do is make sure that our resources, whether it's written materials, videos, support teams, are available. I don't think that there's a world in which we'll be able to send a trainer to every site that needs it, but the ambition is to have regional focal points where there are trainers and deployment partners available who understand the local contexts and languages and can support sites in what they want to do. It's not there yet, but that is one of our ambitions. And as we move forward, that's something that we really want to put effort and resources into. And I think now with the Alliance, we will be able to do more of that.
And I'll add to that also. We'll be making it as easy as possible to go through any sort of transition. Recognize that doesn't solve the need for training, but we'll be minimizing it as much as possible.
There's always AI.
Just answer AI with every question.
Traditionally, SMART and EarthRanger have served terrestrial environments. How can SERCA better serve MPA contexts?
Try not to talk too much. So I don't think that's probably tradition as a result of momentum and also who the partners were in the SMART partnership and their focuses. There's really nothing about either product that is specific to terrestrial or marine settings. They both work just as well. As I say, if the map is green or blue, you can still collect data, you can still visualize those data, you can still run reports and analysis and SMART on those data. In EarthRanger, there are plenty of integrations with device manufacturers that make things that are specific to marine applications. So I think that is it's a little bit of a false dichotomy that is kind of an artifact of history more so than a aspect of the products.
I also would say that SERCA is not just about the technology. It's about adaptive management and all of those things as well. And those principles apply everywhere. So
the tools are flexible. If you have spatial, temporal data and you want to do something with it, you can use these tools, whether it's in water or on land or in space, I guess. I mean, anywhere.
Yeah, it's not only about ecosystems, it's also about different countries and regions as well. Like Africa conservation is quite very, very different from Latin American conservation. So it's very flexible around that, as well as, marine, terrestrial, and we need to continue to be very flexible in that case.
Anybody have questions? I'm just taking them off the app, but questions? All right.
Hand back there.
Oh.
Hi, it's me again. So, really quick question. You just kind of made me think of this. I was curious about it when I saw your map up earlier of your sites, where everything is, and I noticed that the US is very low. So I was curious, what blockers or resistance have you faced? That was kind of a interesting stat there. So however you want to take that one.
Yeah, no, I mean, so, a lot of the deployments, let's start with SMART, but I think it's similar for EarthRanger, are built around responding to threats from poaching, threats that come from human-wildlife conflict. And so I think that's one of the drivers of where the tools were adopted. Another driver is where the partner organizations were operating. So at least for SMART, all the partners in SMART are global conservation organizations that are working across Africa, Latin America, and Asia. So I think that there are two of the driving factors. What's actually interesting is if you look in both North America and in Australia, where we have adoptions, it's actually been a very specific segment of adoptions. It's mainly First Nations, Indigenous peoples groups who have adopted it there. We have seen a lot more adoption in Europe, so I think that there is a potential for broader adoption in the US, but I think, at least from the SMART side, it's partly been driven by the nature of the tool responding to a certain type of threats, and partly to do with the fact that the partners who were scaling it were focused on those areas.
There's also a very American reason, which is, so we're working with 13, I think now, different state fish and wildlife departments. And when we got engaged with a number of them, and I'm thinking of two really in particular, I got an email with an attachment saying, can you attest to the attached? And it was 2,000 pages. Yeah, so I think that's a pretty uniquely American problem. But that's a big part of it, is that a lot of these departments and don't even want to try because they know the bureaucracy that they'll have to jump through.
Thanks everybody for joining us today. Do find us over the next few days if you want to join in the efforts. There's a so-called African proverb that you find on tea towels where I live in South Africa that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So always wisdom on tea towels. Join us, talk to us. Thanks for being here today.